with the with different things, and you know how Arizona has them top mountains, flat ones.
Now, is
That's
your
like
is
what
your mic down, Robert?
yeah,
Okay.
but it would be like where we are now on this landmass is we're on top of mountains more or less because you stop and look. If the water slowly would go down, look at the more and more open land, and the more open land you would have a whole like you could look up and see the top.
Now, can I actually jump in there on that one because right now is actually a good chance to like Bob Dub's from New Zealand, okay, and New Zealand is actually a part of the continent called Zoolandia, I believe they call it. Isn't that what they call it, Bob Dub?
Zealand, yeah.
Z-
One.
Zealand, and that would actually be something that would be interesting. Like if the sea levels actually went down, a lot of that continent would be revealed, and I wonder what that would be like because they've actually said that it would actually be an entire continent if it was above water. But
Well, everything would be really, Roger. I mean, all your continental shelves, if all your continental shelves came up out of the sea, um, your land masses would increase dramatically. But it's around southern Africa, also, I think, probably around Europe and Britain and all the islands up there, the Hebrides and all those.
I was just thinking of the old Doggerland concept
Mm.
in between Britain and Germany.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
yeah.
It is interesting, but there's no evidence really
I'm
to
sorry, I was
show
babbling.
that sea levels go up or down.
Well, actually, and I'm sorry, I was babbling. I didn't realize I was muted. I mentioned that a lot of these continental shelves were above sea level, and Mark did
Mm-hmm.
mention Doggerland, and there's also a record in the Mabinogion of when the Welsh expedition went across to Ireland. It was easy because the sea was much shallower then and narrower, and there were only two rivers, they said. So this seems to be an actual record of a time, and within humans were living there when the water levels were much lower. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any Doggerland legends. We know it was there. They've even found the rivers that flowed there, but I don't think there's any folk tales or legends about it. Wales is full of that, the drowned county and stuff like that.
Mm.
They seem to remember that.
So it's like when the plants during in between the ice ages, how the plants had to work to break up the volcano ash, and the volcano were getting hit by the like the tornado would start sparking it up electrical, but then it don't when it would land on top of a volcano, like what we seen what happened here in the U.S. On Earth just recently a few years ago. That whole process happened, and look how it electrified the atmosphere, but then released all the material from the volcano.
Well, I have heard that there are thunderstorms and electrical discharges associated with volcanoes when they erupt, and also like odd flashes even far away from the volcano, which could be an electromagnetic. It's really hard to get witnesses because you're in the middle of a volcanic eruption, so you're probably not taking notes or measuring things. You're just trying not to. But yeah, I have heard a lot of descriptions. It's generally, I think, accepted.
You know, and and the thing of it is, during that time, how did the plants progress? You know, what
Well,
what specific time was that? You know, that like the second ice age, was it the smaller animals, or and like with seaweed, okay, seaweed came from a plant, and it was frozen over. I don't know whenever it started, however the process was with that. But yeah, but like the like how did the plants progress? All they altered, and with like evergreens trees, they don't never lose their leaves, but they have a however they do it, and the heart. How does the heart from the root part? How does it survive, and how does it alter? The material, like the crystals, or if it has to change to to evolve with the climates and the weather.
Well, bringing up the evergreens, they are very, very modified, or they're designed, or they've evolved for really cold climates. And like you say, they never lose their leaves, their needles, and their leaves are their needles. They're designed for like snowfall and ice, and they always have them. I mean, they shed their needles, but they're always growing new ones. Kind of like my hair, hopefully, keep growing new ones. And it's sort of thing where I can see where, as things gradually got colder, some plants would do better in the cold because their leaves were narrower. I was thinking too about how a lot of the times plants survive these disasters because they're not always in the form of a growing thing and stuck in the ground, but in the form of seeds or spores, if we're talking about fungi. Um, when you look at how well protected conifers seeds are, I mean, it's in a cone. That's why we call them conifers, right? A pine cone, a fir cone. It's a pretty massive little container for a seed, you know. So a lot of these disasters things, seeds are very resilient, and they can survive a lot. It is a stage in the life cycle of the plant, and that seed is as much the plant, to my mind, as what you get after you plant it and water it and weed and this and that for so many months. It's still the same thing. So this can help these plants survive, and seeds can survive for years sometimes. And I don't know about plants, but I know that like mushroom spores can survive in hard vacuum and withstand high levels of radiation and still be viable. So that's a pretty tough customer. That's going to help you on the road of evolution or just survival.
Yeah. During that time, how does like with the ice age and all that, does it help clean the soil of whatever is happening? Like how it when it breaks
Well,
materials down or however.
I'm not an expert, but I know it does move soil around, and certainly there are these things called moraines, terminal moraines sometimes, and they're big piles of rocks. And basically, they were at the front of the glaciers that were like moving along, and they're this big, half a mile thick sheet of ice, and things in front of it, it either rolls over them or pushes them. But then when they stop and they melt, they leave all this stuff, not only the stuff at their face, but also all the debris they picked up underneath, and it just melts and it falls away. So you'll find like weird boulders somewhere, or like, again, weird piles of rocks, and those have been left by the glaciers. And maybe that, I'm sure moving that around stirs up the earth, moves material around. They push trees and this and that. And another thing, when the earth's covered with ice like that for years, nothing can really grow there much, so it's kind of like keeping the soil fallow, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's still bacteria and things going on under there. I mean,
What does
there's
that
life
mean?
under glaciers, ice worms and things. So maybe I could see how it would change the soil that way.
Oh, because what I was referring to, like they always say how the ice age begun with the asteroid hit the Earth and the radiation from it and all that. I was wondering when the ice age and the two merged, how would you say that would work with it, as well?
Well, I don't know about the dating of these asteroid hits, I know that there's a generally they talk a lot about there was an asteroid strike that wiped out the dinosaurs, and I do know. I mean, I believe you can just look at the surface of the Earth, and there's some big craters. The Gulf of I almost said Mexico, but that big gulf there at the beneath that to me looks like a crater, the Yucatan Peninsula. And then there's the meteor crater in Arizona. So the planet's been getting bombarded for a long time, but I'm not really sure about the dating. And I've heard people argue against the dinosaur theory, and I'm not sure if it actually directly relates to the Ice Age as such. From what little I know of the Ice Ages, they occur in like a cycle, seems to be a cyclical pattern that may or may not be connected to like solar activity, but it makes a lot of sense to me because that's our main heater, right? I'm not sure. I know for sure. I mean, asteroid hits, yeah, that's going to change a lot of the local weather for a while. Heck, you remember Mount St. Helena erupting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was just like one volcano, but that's the kind of dust an asteroid would kick up. So the weather got wacky, the sunsets were spectacular, and places closer to it, it was pretty miserable. So yeah. But I'm not sure how the two would relate, to tell you the truth. I'd have to study it more.
That's what I was asking for, is because they have shown a whole area of the U.S. how that when the asteroid did come, the materials from the asteroid was showed up in layers in the earth under the soil, and through the process, I was wondering, like plants, like the materials from that, however it worked through the Ice Age.
I think really when you're talking about asteroids, we're talking about relatively small objects when it hits the that will only produce a sort of very temporary sort of environmental change.
Now, I do have.
I'm sure.
I do have information on Antarctica if you want to hear that, because that's the last part that you wanted me to pull notes on. But like when it comes to like the meteors and stuff like that, that is a very interesting thing to do. But like if you want me to, I can read this, because I think we're up to like 42 minutes, and it's the last part of the actual notes I pulled up for you guys if you want to hear it.
Okay, yeah, that wouldn't hurt.
Because this is actually where it gets the most interesting. It's the research that they found in Antarctica. You guys okay with that?
Yeah, sounds interesting. By all means.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so while the coastal areas of Antarctica support a miniature ecosystem of hardy greenery, the geographical South Pole itself is a sterile polar desert covered in nearly 2 miles of shifting ice. However, humans have brought plants to the South Pole intentionally. Part one to this is plant life at the exact South Pole location. Now, the geographical South Pole is one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth. The native plant life is zero. There are absolutely no native plants, mosses, or lichens at the South Pole. The environment lacks liquid water, has an average temperature of negative 45 degrees Celsius, which is negative 56 degrees Fahrenheit.